Julian Assange extradition hearings have been going on. Julian Assange extradition, this is the fourth day, Thursday, February 27th, 2020. So this is at the Woolwich Crown Court on the outskirts of London, right next to the Belmarsh prison where Julian Assange has been held for nearly 1 year. And this is after 7 years of being confined, living in that tiny Ecuadorian embassy and skateboarding through the halls. So the reason why they threw him in jail in London is because he skipped bail, apparently, right? He had a bail hearing, or he was supposed to pay bail, and he didn't pay any bail. Bernie Sanders is trying to get rid of the bail requirement. But Belmarsh Prison is where Julian Assange is rotting. His health is deteriorating. This is the fourth day of this extradition hearing, whether or not Britain is going to give Julian Assange up over to the American authorities. So it's Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, right? Both of them could just grant a pardon. Or the Queen, or how the fuck, I don't even know how them... Apparently, this extradition hearing could go for weeks, but I heard that it was only going to be 5 days, and then it was going to, carry on in May. So I'm not for sure exactly how long this extradition, but, what the ultimate is, what are they going to do? How are they going to conclude this thing? So it'll be either Julian Assange goes free, or Julian Assange gets deported to the United States. So I can't speak to my lawyers. This is Julian Assange. This is some updates of the shit that he's been having to go through. So they're still fucking with him, right? So he gets thrown into the Belmarsh prison. He's handcuffed 11 times. He's stripped naked twice. His case files are being taken away from him. He needs to, study for the case. This is his case. He's got to make sure he understands the laws, but they took that information away from him. So they're just, basically, they're cheating him. They're cheating him. They've been recording him. They recorded him speaking to his lawyers in the Ecuadorian embassy, and so he can't even speak to his lawyers in confidence. And so this is Julian Assange in his own words. I can't speak to my lawyers or instruct them. I can't convey instructions to them confidentially. Assange had said this when he was standing behind high walls made of glass panels. So he's behind this big glass wall, right? This case has already had enough spying on my lawyers. The U.S. government lawyers have had 100 times to visit with Assange's lawyer, but Julian has only met with his own lawyers a very few times. So how can Julian Assange trust the lawyers he's even has? The U.S. government has met with Assange's lawyers over 100 times. They got a better friendship. The government, the lawyers for the government of, Britain and America, they're best buddies, right? They're all in this legal game. It's all a big fucking game for them. Yeah, man's rights and freedoms are on stake. His life is, in your hands. But they're a bunch of... Anyways, I feel you, Assange. And they didn't seem to give a shit. Judge Vanessa Barrister, Judge Vanessa, she said she didn't have any power over the prison conditions, which seems, who does have power over the prison conditions if it's not the judge? The judge is the judge of the land, right? You judge the law. Is that how the law is? You're allowed to torture people in prison? You're going to sit there and say that, there's torture when it comes to Chelsea Manning, which it is, but you're torturing your own people. And this is Britain, too. Just a quick side note. They don't have a constitution. So how in the fuck can Britain, without a constitution, where does their laws even begin? They made an argument that the extradition treaty, the U.S.-UK extradition treaty, has no power, no say-so, no teeth when it comes to English law. What the fuck does have? You don't have a constitution, Britain. You have no basis for any of your laws. So to think that Julian Assange is going to have, confidentiality between lawyer and client, or freedom of speech, or, right to have compel witnesses, all the shit, all the law, all the rights that Americans have in the Constitution, plus a whole host of human rights, Julian Assange doesn't get any of those. He doesn't have a constitution. None of his rights and freedoms are guaranteed by a constitution. So these motherfuckers are just making this shit up as they go along. So Vanessa Barrister, she can't do shit about the prison conditions. She's a judge who clearly has no power. But she has power in the courtroom, so she could ban photography in the courtroom. So this is crazy. We're going to go to court, and they're going to say, well, let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the law, look at the evidence, and then make a determination about how this person should be treated. But she's going to ban photography in the courtroom. That's anti-evidence? You're against evidence of how the courtroom proceedings are going to go forward? Well, I can't trust that. I mean, put yourself, behind videotape. Let everybody see what the fuck you bastards are doing. They're going to say, Judge Vanessa is going to make it a criminal offense to take a picture in the court, which is remarkable. She's videotaping the hearings, I'm sure, so they get the videotape of everybody and their faces and their arguments, and they get to review it. But nobody in the public eye or nobody on Julian Assange's side gets to see what these motherfuckers are up to. So this is the priorities of the judicial system of Britain. When it comes to Britain, they don't give a shit if you have rights or freedoms or if they're, if you're getting raped in prison. But they do, hate it if you go and take a picture of the judge. The judge is supposed to be behind the scenes, never to be held to account for any of the bullshit that they do. Be like Judge Alito. Put this shit right in front of everybody. Let's see what the fuck you assholes are doing. Edward Fitzgerald, which is Julian Assange's lawyer, tried to humanize Assange by saying, let Assange sit next to his lawyers. Assange is like Mubarak or something. He's in a glass cage, he's like behind a glass wall, and he's having to shout, whenever, so instead of being behind a big, tall glass wall, why don't Assange sit right next to him? Quit. You're trying to make him look like a fucking criminal that's going to taint anybody who's looking at it and judging it. So shit, he should be allowed to study the court and they'll study the case, and he should be allowed to dress, as best as he can and sit next to the lawyers. If Julian Assange tries to make a run for it, I'm sure there's plenty of fucking cops that'll catch him. He ain't going nowhere. So just treat Assange like a person, but they already aren't. Judge Vanessa clearly don't care. She don't have no say-so when it comes to the prisons that she rules over. It's her. She's the judge of the law of the land, but she has no say-so. She's got no say, so why don't you go into the prison and drag those assholes into court? Them motherfuckers are torturing people. That's a crime. Julian Assange is not being accused of a crime. He's being accused of this political bullshit, which is what? The Espionage Act of American law. He's an Australian citizen using, web internet over in the goddamn over in Europe. What the fuck did he do that would, there was a recent Supreme Court case that just said, if the Minutemen, if American shoots a Mexican on the other line, Mexican cannot use the court system to sue that American and to get justice or to get any kinds of money. So what the fuck is Mexico supposed to do if some asshole from America shoots somebody in Mexico? That's murder. That's, borderline, we're going to go to war, right? They're killing our people, and you're not going to get the person that murdered them. He murdered us, murdered it on our territory. That's a war. That's an invasion. So we're going to sit there and say that if, an American shoots a Mexican on Mexican territory, he has no constitutional rights. American law does not apply to him. He don't get America's protections under the law. But we're going to sit there and say that Julian Assange, who's, half world away, that the American law does apply to him. This shit doesn't make any goddamn sense. So the U.S. request for Assange is not of a criminal nature. It's a political nature, strictly political. And also it is chilling when you think about the global security state. So basically America isn't just fucking over the First Amendment rights of Americans and, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, and all the whistleblowers here, but they're trying to fuck over the First Amendment rights for every journalist and whistleblower all across the world. There was some guy, Galloway. He was basically just saying, America, what is your legacy? Remember the Vietnam War? Remember how we got out of the Vietnam? Remember the My Lai massacre? Remember Daniel Ellsberg and Mike Gravel and the Pentagon Papers? We'll just flush all that shit down the drain. We actually had, we've had all this shit happen before, and ultimately the American public forgives these, truth tellers and whistleblowers. Thank you, Mike Gravel, for telling us about the Vietnam War. Thank you, Daniel Ellsberg, for publishing the Pentagon Papers. We needed to know about the My Lai massacre. We needed to know the truth about the war. If we're being lied in the war, then we can be truth out of it. And it usually takes lies to get us into wars. It took us a lie to get us into the Iraq War. And then we're in all these other countries and they're not even telling us about it. If they did ask the American people, should we be in Cameroon? I don't think the American people would be like, yeah, and Kenya, and Niger. How come we're not in Niger yet? American people, Congress, we're not getting any choice whatsoever. representing us, taxation without representation. You got the chief executive branch just going around and, sending our troops and military invading whatever countries they fucking feel like it whenever they fucking feel like it without anybody's permission whatsoever. Talk about tyranny. Talk about, being nervous. Talk about, Jesus Christ, just compare the impeachment trial to Julian Assange. So the impeachment trial, there was no evidence, no witnesses. It was all political. The whole thing was political from start to finish. There was no actual question of, is this right, is this wrong, is this justice? Donald Trump only had 2 charges. Julian Assange has 18 charges. So that's the difference between a cruise missile attack and a carpet bombing. So when it comes to, if it's just a murder, charged murder, maybe second-degree murder, but that's it. That's the crime. So they're either guilty of the crime or they're not guilty of the crime. But a lot of times prosecutors, especially in America, like to add a bunch of enhancement charges. So they'll say murder in the first, murder in the second, and disorderly conduct, and harassment communications, and jaywalking, and not wearing a seatbelt, and just keep on tacking a whole bunch of shit just in hopes of one of them, right? The jury's going to say one of these charges, he's guilty of one of these charges, and so it's a carpet bombing of charges instead of just the exact thing. I don't like how they do that because game theory says, okay, you're charged with a crime, you can either be guilty or not guilty of that one crime or that one charge. If they say you're charged with 10 crimes, well, then that's 50%, 10 times over. You're going to get, guilty verdict on half of them just based on game theory. So 10 charges, one of them, he's got 18 charges. One of those charges are going to get him, right? And but meanwhile, Donald only had 2 charges. They didn't do a real trial. They didn't have any witnesses. He's guilty as shit. He did what he's being accused of doing. And meanwhile, Assange, this superhero, this whistleblower, this journalist, he just, spread information. He's been saving governments, cut out all the corruption in Peru, told about the war crimes that are happening in Iraq, that there's journalists and kids that are being shot. And he's just been telling the truth and just changing the world for the better. In fact, you wouldn't have known, all the shit that's been going on. You wouldn't have known about the Podesta emails and the Peru and the scandals and all this shit without Julian Assange. So Julian Assange is absolutely vital, and history will vindicate Julian Assange. 100, 200 years down the road, he's still going to be read about and what he did. And hopefully, he's not turned into a goddamn martyr. Hopefully he's not taken out of society. And that's the, last thing is that not only has the U.S. government been spying on Julian Assange's lawyers, and with the Spanish firm, U.S. Global, they got that recording of Julian Assange with his lawyers. But the United States government had plotted to kill Assange, tried to poison him, make it look like an accident, right? Now I'm thinking Fidel Castro, was he poisoned? Stokely Carmichael. My God, think of all those Black Panthers. It's like there's something going on here. Am I being a conspiracy theorist, or is this a lot of corruption that's in, the high-ranking authorities around here? So they were kidnapped, and they want to poison him. They want to kill him. So he's got 18 charges. He's looking at 175 years in a federal jail in America. And, right, we don't even give we don't give Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, we don't give Americans a fair trial around here. What makes you think that, Julian Assange is going to get a fair trial? Hell, Bobby Fischer got his ass kicked by the cops and nobody gave a shit, right? This America. We're dog-eat-dog capitalists. What, you got diabetes? You don't have enough health care? You're homeless and living on the street? Well, fuck your life. I got mine. So U.S. spies, so that means there's attempts on his life. The Guardian published unredacted files. So Julian Assange had said that he called the White House in 2011. He passed these files out to these newspapers, but then one of the newspapers, not the Guardian, but the German newspaper, had figured out the password to some of the redacted files. Julian Assange found out about that, and they're like, oh shit, he might get in trouble for that. Calls the State Department, and they said, we'll get back to you. But they never did. So he called the White House to let them know that 250,000 classified files might be released because of what the German newspaper was doing in 2011. But the State Department didn't give a shit. They didn't call him back and say, hey, well, let's try to work on this. No. But his point is that the newspapers are the ones that are publishing these unredacted files, not WikiLeaks. And yeah, so shit. If Assange is killed or taken out of society for life, this is just disgusting. It's ridiculous. Sweden dropped the charges, so no rape charges, right? But Sweden, how could you? You're such a, with your wooden shoes and your culture, it seems so rural and advanced and modern, You seem like you got a lot of shit going on, Sweden. How could you? I guess the rape charges were dropped, and then there was a documentary, so hopefully, people actually find out why that even happened. But for a long time, right, he's sitting in the Ecuadorian embassy because of those rape charges. And then he gets arrested, then the rape charges are no more. Now we're not even worried. Oh, it doesn't matter if he rapes someone in Sweden. Who gives a shit? Yeah, because it was all about this video. It's all about him being antagonistic to nation states and governments and corporations. Last thing I want to mention is that there's a man who testified who seemed genuinely afraid for his life. And he said that the U.S. had plotted to kill or kidnap Assange. So they tried to poison Assange, make it look like an accident, kidnap, do something to him, right? And you shut him the fuck up. Get him to stop doing what he's doing. And the man seemed genuinely afraid for his life, so it seems like he was telling the truth. Why would he lie about this? The U.S. government tried to assassinate Castro over 900 times. So none of this is a surprise to me. It's just fucking sad because I feel pessimistic. Assange is up against the wall. Is Assange going to... Is he going to get out of this? Is he going to be, be able to walk around free as a bird? He applied for asylum in France. He lived in France for 3 years. He's an Australian citizen. Now he's stuck in the UK, stuck in fucking London. So, shit. They don't have a constitution. And, however the wind, however that judge wakes up. One day that judge, what is it, Katerina, what's her name? Vanessa. So Judge Vanessa is going to wake up one day and say, you know what? This is all bullshit. I'm going to let him go free. Or, you know what? I didn't like how Julian Assange gave me the stink eye. Fuck him. And she'll think she's being, smart and she's, using her common sense. But ultimately it was just because of a slight and because he's powerless. So this powerless man gave me the stink eye. Well, fuck his life. He should give you the stink eye. You're dragging his life and making a mockery and doing all this fucking bullshit and you're not going to give him a fair trial. Why wouldn't he give you the goddamn stink eye? And that's not a crime. Taking a picture is not a crime. You know what is a crime? Kidnapping a man. That's a crime. Falsely imprisoning a man. Falsely charging him. Going through all this fucking rigmarole. And for what? He's a danger? He might be a flight risk, but he's not a danger to anybody. He hasn't hurt anybody. He believes in the sharing of information, just like Aaron Schwartz. And, this is the information age. So he's a person who believes in freedom of information during the information age. Everybody that's trying to fuck with Julian Assange is going to get fucked with for the rest of their life. The legacies. I mean, Assange's legacy is set in stone. All we could do right now is either let him do what he's doing, try to regulate it a little bit, but ultimately... this shit ain't working for me. Fuck this whole extradition hearing. Fuck Julian Assange being in a Belmarsh prison. So fuck not Julian Assange, but the situation. So fuck, Judge Vanessa Barrister and everybody that's involved with Snowden, everybody that's involved with Chelsea Manning, even Mumia Abu-Jamal. So many fucking people get fucked over by the criminal justice system, and unless you have a buddy in the Oval Office, then you won't get any empathy. You won't get any sympathy whatsoever. So, yeah, I hope Julian Assange stays strong. There was a book, I guess, Julian Assange had about Gore Vidal, about the national or the international security state. I don't know, but that's a book that Julian Assange wanted us to read. So I think you should get around to reading that someday. Jonathan Masters, are you going to read your damn book? So, yeah, that's the Julian Assange update on this Thursday, February 27th, 2020, 4:38 p.m. Peace.